Hi everyone, and welcome to the Free Range Diva. Today we are going to be talking about fermented foods, some of my favorite fermented foods, and why cultured foods are so good for us. I have notes here, so I'll be referring to those throughout the video. Also, I scratched my cornea last week in multiple places, apparently, in my left eye, so I'm still healing up from that. So I have one contact in the right eye, and I'm hoping I'll be able to see using that. I think I'll be fine. And no mascara or eyeliner or anything like that while my eye is healing. All right, let's get started. So fermentation is a process that's used to transform anti-nutrients in foods into more nutritious, easily digestible, bioavailable nutrients that we can then digest and use. Plants protect themselves from being eaten by making things like hemagglutinins, enzyme inhibitors, cyanogens, neurotoxins, and many other chemicals that will make you sick if you eat them. If anyone like me likes to have plants, you know that there are some plants that can be toxic if you eat them to pets and to you, and other plants have things in them like saps and things that if they touch your skin, for example, can be irritants. So some species like us have the physiology to be able to deal with most of these anti-nutrients, but with fermentation, a bacteria is introduced that multiplies and neutralizes these anti-nutrients so that we can eat things like chocolate, cheese, wine and beer. What am I forgetting? Things like raw cabbage, like other raw vegetables that might make us sick if we try and eat them without any kind of cooking. Fermentation has also made it possible for things like bread to be invented. In fact, the oldest recipe that we have found, or that historians have found, has been for a type of bread, a fermented bread. It was called beer bread. Let's see. But today, of course, the art of fermentation has been overtaken and somewhat lost due to things like pasteurization, because fermentation also was necessary in order to preserve foods, and now it no longer is. We have refrigeration, pasteurization, things like that. Fermentation has been used by many cultures, and in traditional cultures we have things like miso, kimchi, things that you may have eaten that are not native to our culture here in America, but are fermented. So bacteria is everywhere in our environment, and the idea of using that bacteria to grow proportionally, and it's good bacteria, not the bad bacteria. The fermentation uses a process that encourages good bacteria to grow in a medium of some sort. One of the biggest warehouses of bacteria is our gut lining in our digestive tract. The amount of bacteria and fungi in our digestive tract outnumber every other cell in the body. They outnumber the cells in our body by 10 to 1. So it makes you kind of wonder who's controlling who. Are we a host for, a delivery system for all these bacteria? So there are over 800 strains and 7,000 species living inside us in a delicate balance. This balance is unique to everyone. So the balance of my gut bacteria is going to be different from your gut bacteria. Additionally, different bacteria grow in different regions. So, which is why something like sourdough bread, for example, tastes different depending on where it's cultured. It's slightly different because the bacterial strains in every county, every country, every region of the world are going to be slightly different from each other. So in our gut lining, these microbes, they break down the toxins that could sicken or kill us. They turn simple sugars into complex nutrients, and they make vitamins and, of course, fight off pathogens. Yes, your immune system truly is centered in your gut. When the gut microbiome is thrown out of balance due to things like the introduction of antibiotics, birth control pills, and overeating too many carbohydrates, like too many sugars, it can cause something called yeast overgrowth. And this yeast can cause you to crave the foods. It wants to stay alive too, so it sends a signal to your brain to crave those foods that it needs to live and to multiply. That particular food, by the way, is sugar. So if you notice, like when you're using yeast, like packaged yeast to bake with, that you'll often add a little sugar to give it some food to grow and multiply. That's the idea. So the thing is that yeast overgrowth in the body can lead to things like allergies, autoimmune disorders, and inflammatory diseases. So keeping that microbiome in balance and keeping the yeast in check is really, really important to ensuring that you have good health. So when we eat foods that have live cultures of bacteria in them, these foods tend to be more nutritious because the bacteria add nutrition while they have removed a lot of toxins in the foods. Foods that have live cultures are things like yogurt, raw, pickles, sauerkraut, and although many of these microbes are destroyed by our digestive juices, those that are digested donate their nutritious parts, their good parts, to us, so that we get more nutrition from eating the bacteria, even though obviously all of them are not going to make it through the digestive tract. Let's see, these bacteria can make almost all of the essential vitamins and amino acids that we need. Even foods that result from the fermentation process and wherein the bacteria are destroyed, the food that remains is more nutritious than its counterpart. So than it was when it started. So example, wine has more antioxidants than grape juice, and cheese has more protein than milk. And of course, chocolate. I mean, can you imagine a world without chocolate? But yes, chocolate begins its life with fermentation. The microbes are eventually killed through the process of turning raw cacao into cocoa powder, but nevertheless, their nutrition remains behind. So even the beneficial bacteria in our gut can be and is seeded by the bacteria that gets through the digestive system. So its numbers are increased. That increases their chances of fighting off those pathogens that we might accidentally ingest, like E. coli, for example. And it also helps to keep those bad actors like yeast under control. So it does count. It does affect you to eat foods with live cultures. Of course, you can also take a probiotic, and that's for a whole nother video, because that's basically the same idea as getting bacteria, seeding your good bacteria with even more good bacteria to make your the good bacteria stronger in your gut. So now I'm going to show you some of my favorite foods that have living cultures in them. Okay, so here they are. We're going to start with, and again, these are all foods that have live, active cultures. And there are several different strains of cultures that each have growing in them. And I'll put the names of some of them, like maybe over here. But we're going to start with the food that I can't remember who I heard say this. I don't remember if it was Dr. Oz or Dr. Axe or one of those TV doctors. But they were talking about kefir. And kefir is a cultured drink. It's almost like a drinkable yogurt that originated in Eastern Europe. And this doctor that I heard said that kefir has more probiotics per weight, per ounce, than any other food. This is the top of the line when it comes to putting something into your gut that is going to give you benefits. So this particular brand has Bifidobacterium, acidophilus, KCI. I can't even begin to say that, but it has 64 billion probiotics in it. I had some today for breakfast. It has a very mild, this is plain and whole milk, but this also comes in, and it's from cow's milk, but this also comes in other nut milks like almond and coconut milk and other flavors. So strawberry, mango is real popular around here, and different price points. But it usually sells for about the same as yogurt. So yeah, so this is wonderful. I feel great having had this morning for breakfast. And it was my first time, oh, had some on the front. It was my first time trying it. So this is the organic Nancy's brand, but again, look in your grocery store because there's lots of different brands and lots of different flavors. And if you don't want to mess around and you really want to get your gut, you know, whatever, if you're having gut issues and you want to get them under control, kefir is really good. I could do actually probably better do a separate video just on kefir's benefits, because at a glance, this is lactose free. It lowers cholesterol and A1C. It reduces body weight, and it can obviously improve your tummy's health. So yeah, powerhouse of nutrition is kefir. Next up, of course, is the old standby yogurt. This one, again, is whole milk. It's got several strains of live active cultures. Does it say how many? It probably does, I just can't read it. But yeah, again, you all know yogurt, and I prefer whole milk because when you start getting lower fat, you know, and fat-free and things, they add in stuff. And the stuff that they add in that I can't deal with is vitamins that are not only sourced from corn, but the process of getting them in includes a couple of corn derivatives like propylene glycol and corn oil. So whole milk it is, because this is just milk. There's nothing else in here, I don't think. Pectin is the only other ingredient. And then in the same vein, if you've never tried, this is something I discovered last year when I was on vacation in Vancouver. It's called Skyr. This brand is Icelandic Provisions, but there are other brands that make this type of yogurt. This is almost has the consistency of like whipped cream cheese, and the flavor is unbelievable. It's mild, it's slightly sweet. Sometimes I get this plain and have it with granola. This one has raspberry in it, you know, flavored, but just the raspberry fruit. There's not a lot of sugar or anything like that. By the way, if you are diabetic or need to watch your sugar, stick to plain yogurts because most of the other ones that add fruit also add a lot of sugar as well. And flavorings like vanilla also add sugar to it. So, but yeah, if you've never tried Skyr, oh, you are missing out. That's all I can say. This is so, so good. Other things that you can ferment are condiments, like pickles, pickled relish can be fermented. Ketchup can be fermented. And my favorite thing to ferment is mustard. I use a book that is a traditional foods cookbook, and they do have a section on fermentation, but it's basically condiments. And so I will actually link below some references of blogs and books and things that I found that can give you more info about fermenting things at home, because I have done it, and it's easy and the food is really, really good. You basically use things like salt and water to build your bacteria as a, you know, a basis for that the bacteria grow in. This particular recipe uses sauerkraut juice, fresh sauerkraut juice, to build the ferment, and it's delicious. It tastes, because this I did a video on how I make this, but I include things that I like, you know, so it's customized to my flavor palette, and it is just really good, especially if you're putting it on things like avocados or other, you know, fatty foods like fish or things like that. It not only helps you digest those things, but it also makes them taste really good. Adds a nice balance. And speaking of sauerkraut, now this is fresh sauerkraut that I got from Trader Joe's, but all of your, I've seen this, you know, in every major health food type store and non, actually. Raw, you can't hear it, but this is fizzing right now. Raw vegetables you know, that have been fermented are very popular right now. And this is just basically sauerkraut and cucumber, so it's sauerkraut and pickles. That again is really good. I love this on fish because I often have trouble digesting fish, and I never know if I'm going to be able to eat it or if I'm going to end up, you know, seeing it again a couple of hours later. But if I include this, I don't have those issues. It helps me to digest fish. At this point in the video, my editing software completely destroyed my audio, and although you see me talking, what was coming out of my mouth was audio from an earlier clip. So I'm just going to tell you what I'm saying. At this point, I'm talking about making sauerkraut. The process is to shred the cabbage and macerate it with salt until it releases its juices. You put it in a jar, seal it, and place it in a cool, dark cabinet for a couple of weeks. At that point, it's fermented and you can eat it. You would store it in the refrigerator and it will keep for several months. For me, the process was a little bit stressful, so I've only done it once. And since I can get it from the store, I think I'll just keep buying it. However, the homemade sauerkraut tastes really good, and the texture is much crisper than the store-bought. The last item in this list is kombucha. It's a sparkling probiotic beverage that has been fermented from tea or juice. The drink is fizzy, and this particular flavor of tea is black tea with lemon and ginger. The juice is fermented mango juice with coconut added. I find the beverage to be sweet and refreshing. And make sure to check your labels for added sugar, because there are many brands and many varieties that are widely available. So there is definitely a kombucha for everyone's taste. The black tea one has caffeine and the juice does not. Okay, so now we're going to go back to the actual video audio. Make your own if you and it doesn't take a lot of effort from what I've read. I have some recipes for it. I've never tried it myself, but I think you have to order something called a SCOBY, and then and you can, once you have that, that's sort of your basis for things like kefir and kombucha. Usually have a starter similar to sourdough bread, and kefir granules is the starter for kefir, and SCOBY, which stands for something, and I'll write it somewhere, is the starter for kombucha. And then you just kind of go from there. It's pretty much, both processes are pretty easy. You add water and let it sit, or you add your medium and let it sit. So yes, that is the video for today. I will link as many references as I can find down in the description bar of YouTube channels. I mean, I learned a lot of, at least as far as fermenting, watching YouTube. So I'll link some channels, and I'll link some blogs and recipe books, the one I use, and others as well, so that if you want to get started on doing your own cultured food at home, then you'll have the references that you need to get yourself started doing that. All right, so that's going to do it for today, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Also, if you want to see more videos like this, give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments, and I will, bring you more sort of healthy, traditional components, food components that really probably we all have in our backgrounds. We just forgot about them. I mean, I know I grew up not drinking, but my parents drank buttermilk, which again is another cultured food, although the buttermilk that you get in the grocery stores is not the same. It's probably not even cultured. So I think they probably use yeast or something, I don't know. But anyway, I'm off topic. All right, everyone, I thank you so much. All of you who have subscribed, especially you newbies, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so that you won't miss my next video. And until I see you in my next video, I'm wishing you all a wonderful day, a wonderful week. Take good care of yourselves. Grab some cultured something, some kombucha. And I will talk to you again very, very soon. Bye, everybody.